Well, I'm excited because we've got two of, I would call them the pioneers, the forerunners in the state here of Florida. And that's a big thing when you talk about bike packing, gravel adventures, and just all out fun on two wheels. And so we got Graham and Carlos here. Just kind of say, man, what was the fun thing that you did over the last 2 days? What Graham, you can go first, man. What was something fun that you did over the last 2 days, and you thought, man, I think I need to share this with somebody.
Oh, I took the wrong bike to Dirty Pecan. I'll tell you that. I I took a yeah. I don't know. I mean, it was a gunfight. I thought we
Ooh,
were. I thought we were just gonna have an easy ride.
mm,
My that new bike I've got, it's got 2.35s
yeah,
on it, and hooking up with some old friends, Tim Hayes and Joey Gilman from Orlando, some guys that
mm,
I've known for years, and they were like heading up. So I just drove up early on Saturday morning, and I just love this bike and how comfortable it is. So
mm-hmm,
they haven't been riding that much. I figured we'd
yeah,
just be hanging out,
no,
and we even left before the fast group, and
yeah,
the fast group caught us, and I guess the plan was to ride with the fast group for a while. Then the second fast group. So the
yeah,
first like 2 hours was tempo threshold on a
oh
bike
no,
that was
that's
just it's really comfy at 15 miles an hour. At 20,
right.
it starts to hurt. So
Yeah, that's uncalled for. That just
it was
seems
great though. The
criminal.
Dirty Pecan is insane, just how beautiful and peaceful it is.
Yeah.
You got to go.
Yeah, well, yeah, I couldn't go this weekend because well, I was in Orlando with the kids. We had promised our second oldest for her birthday slash graduation. We do a little getaway, so this was the getaway. We went and did Universal Studios and did all that, and I mean, it's a lot of money to go there.
Ooh.
It's like you can go there or buy bike stuff, and I'm thinking like, man, this is a commitment. So yeah, that was kind of our fun this weekend. So we got to
Memories.
go. Carlos, what about you, man? What did you do? What's a fun thing you did?
Oh, sorry. Florida Divide kicked off on
Yeah.
Saturday morning, and then I went to Dirty Pecan and cranked out the 60.
Ooh,
And then yesterday, some Australians who were finishing up the Huracan came by and picked up their bike boxes.
nice.
And then today, I rode out and met up with the Japanese guy who is leading the Florida Divide Southern Grand Depart. He's in the lead.
Nice.
Rode with him about 30 miles.
Uh-huh.
And now, I'm here hanging out
Yeah.
with you boys.
Yeah, dude, that's it. That sounds amazing. That sounds like way more exciting than what I probably did today. So, now I want to just kind of jump into the recap of the Dirt Devil. And so first, before we kind of jump into some thoughts and things like that, like just kind of feel free to jump in, but man, how does this thing come about? The name, when did it happen? Like how did this thing start?
I was working a project with Bike Florida for a spring to spring tour. I had
Mhm.
already put on two of them, I think. And Graham had been hitting me up since like 2018. Just just one of those eager folks who wanted to go scouting. Like, hey, send me on a scouting trip.
Mhm.
So I gave him, a bunch of really like wet stuff to go check out just to see what his metal was. And
That's what that
and
was.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Standard fare. How good are you at following the line? That kind of thing. And he was doing great. And somehow I was just looking at the emails, and he asked me if I needed any ideas or any suggestions. And I had mentioned that I was working this project for Bike Florida,
Mhm.
that I wanted to put together a spring to spring tour. And he sent me that. And then that was in May of 2019 when he sent me that. And then I went out and wrote it a couple of times to kind of dial in and make amendments as needed. And then originally it was called the Devil's Den Loop. But once I was no longer, once I decided that I could just put on tours for myself, I don't need to put on tours for anybody else.
Yeah.
I changed it to the Dirt Devil Loop, and we kind of brought it back. We took like a year off, a hiatus
Mhm.
for it. But now it's been going on every year. I guess technically this would be like the sixth year it's going
Oh,
on.
nice.
I thought it was the seventh, but that's what happens when you put on a bunch of stuff. Time flies.
They blend
But
together.
we did the first one with Devil's Den, and we stayed at Two Hawk,
Mhm.
and then all the other subsequent ones, it has changed a bit. Like I reversed the direction when I heard about Two Hawk and their third Saturday thing where they have music and the private tour of the spring at night. When I heard about that, I decided to reverse the route so that
Hmm.
it would be our night two camp. I always like to say it's a memorable and important ride because it really helped to spark more collaboration with Graham Partain in doing dirt road focus routes. A lot of single track samurai before the Dirt Devil Loop was, hardcore like single track. Like we were riding to get to the single track trails and connecting those. And Graham was a big influence in showing the value of great dirt road riding. So that's one of the reasons the Dirt Devil is such an important route, because it helped to kind of kick off that collaboration of making routes that are dirt road focused instead of just single track focus.
Yeah, that's great. Graham, what do you got to add to that there?
Yeah, this is my backyard. When Carlos wanted to do something in this area, that's that I got really excited about because there's so many dirt roads around Gainesville. And we've cultivated, as a group, as a community, we've cultivated a lot of these roads over the years to put together, group rides. And this is pre me ever sleeping in a tent, mind you. Bike packing for me at that time was still, way off in the distance. I had never done a multi-day ride even. I was just doing single day rides. Really, before the pandemic, I really hadn't been doing much distance. My kids were young. I was busy, so my riding was not long. And this introduced me to some new ideas about multi-day biking and bike packing and the things that have happened recently. Really took a few years, but I liked the idea, of exposing people to the areas that we love. The Springs and Devil's Den's always been a sort of a mystical place, because of the prehistoric cavern and being able to go down into the cave and swim in the springs underground. With there's just a hole that opens up to the sky and a big hole that opens up down into the ground. So putting these all together was like I did the route without a problem. I was like, this is easy. I know these roads, and I was excited. I was like, oh, I can connect this and this. I started thinking about all the different routes I love and putting them all together. And so collaborating with Carlos really opened my eyes to the possibilities. And the end result's been fantastic. This year is the first year I've ever actually ridden the tour. I've ridden all the roads, but I've never done the tour. I just handed it over to Carlos, and he was doing this tour, and it kind of never worked out. But this year was the first time I was able to load up and actually have a tent and camp, and I'm kind of new to that still, and had the best time. And I would have slept great if it wasn't for roosters following us around.
Yeah, we're going to talk about those Florida roosters in a little bit. But right now, not now. But man, that's awesome. And I know from my perspective, again, been biking a long time, but not bike packing. This was kind of my first trip, and the only exposure to these sort of gravel rides I did was Graham talked me into doing Kings Road, and I don't know if you should start with that, but we started with that, and that was a great. I was like, wow, this is insane. You kind of like it, you hate it all together. And but since I like coffee and all that, I was telling some folks there when we were doing the trip day one, I was like, if you had to like name the Dirt Devil, like if I were going to kind of give it a name, like and kind of associate that with coffee, that would be the approachable, the people pleaser. It's real easy entry level. Now I'm not going to say easy. I mean, because there's you're checking all the boxes for stuff you got to do. You got to carry your own stuff. You got to figure some things out. There's always a few wrinkles in there, but man, I thought it was great, approachable. You're close enough. Like if something catastrophic happens, like you've got some help there. And so I thought from my perspective, never having doing one, so for whatever that's worth, I thought it was a great route from that perspective. Like anyone can jump into it, and so I look forward to going back to it because now it's like, all right, I've done it done a couple of days. I'm familiar with it. I kind of know how the stuff works. And so now I think it's going to be a little bit more just enjoyable because you're not trying to figure stuff out. You're just there to enjoy it. So I think you guys put on a really good little route there, a route, and I like it a lot personally. And so kind of jumping into that, when you kind of think about, the tour aspect of it, and I know before we left, Carlos, you were saying, "Hey, this is not a race. This is a tour, right? This is a." And so, thankfully, we didn't have what you had, Graham, at the Dirty Pecan, where people were just flying by and just going threshold and all that. So that's not going to work on something like this. I guess it could, but it's not the design of it. But when you kind of like, let's walk through each day because I want to kind of give, for those that maybe haven't done this or maybe want to watch a video. I know there's, Graham, you did a video and kind of captured a lot of this. But tell me what you guys think of like when you think about the biggest takeaway, for day one for you guys. What was that?
I really love that first foray into the dirt because immediately after you deal with having to ride on 441 for that bit, you go into like an immediate oak tree tunnel. So it really like, oh, okay, now those 7 miles of pavement was worth it. Even though as far as pavement miles goes, those are the best they could be because the shoulder's enormous and you got Payne's Prairie right there. But that first foray into the dirt is really a great like kickoff. And what I really appreciate about day one, and it's pretty subtle unless you're like a dirt road nerd like I am, but that first day has the most primitive sets of roads that we're going to encounter the whole trip. Like from day one to day two, you go from a lot of primitive, narrow B roads that you don't even know how people get to their house to wide open rural roads that are perfectly maintained. So it's a big contrast from day one to day two, and those are usually my big takeaways with that first day is how primitive the dirt roads are compared to the next couple of days.
Hmm.
Yeah, Micanopy, the starting town, is significant in a lot of ways. It's the first inland Florida town, St. Augustine being the first Florida city, but Micanopy was the first established town in Florida inland, and it was a fort. There was quite a few battles around that area, and established eventually what it is now, and it's been there since the late 1800s. And it looks like it. Like you go into Micanopy and it looks like it's been there for a couple hundred years. It's really unique, and they've held on to that. And the interesting thing too is, that Doc Hollywood, the movie was filmed there, and I'm in my 50s, so I very much remember Michael J. Fox and Doc Hollywood, and it's pretty interesting because this is the biggest thing that ever happened to Micanopy. So you go in to stores and they've got these black and white pictures of Michael J. Fox in their store and all this. It's like the biggest thing that ever happened to the town. Probably the highlight of day one is going across Payne's Prairie on 441 on a big wide shoulder, and there's a nice overlook, and I highlighted some of that in the drone shots. I mean, Payne's Prairie is endless in the amount of wildlife and culture. There's so much history. They've got bison, they've got wild horses, which is crazy, just wild horses running around, and a kabillion alligators. I mean, there's so many alligators. It's nuts. And right now, Payne's Prairie is a lake. And when I first moved to Gainesville, it was dry all the way across. You could walk across it. But there's a sinkhole on the east side that it fills and opens up and closes at times, so the lake comes and goes. And right now, it plugged up and the lake filled up after Hurricane Irma in 2017. And it's a massive lake, and the wildlife loves it. I mean, you get out there and there's some big overlooks. Payne's Prairie is a must-do for Florida, and it's very friendly from the standpoint of hiking and biking and sightseeing, birds and wildlife. It just encompasses everything you can imagine Florida to be. So that's really the highlight. And as you go from there, you go through kind of around those rural areas to urban Gainesville, around Southwest Gainesville, and experience some of our dirt roads that as a group we ride frequently right around town. It's the best thing about living in Gainesville is we can get on dirt roads. I mean, a mile from my house can be on dirt roads and be on dirt roads for miles. And we use some of those to get up north to Olena Park, and we hit the historic Bellamy Road, which I won't shut up about to people because it's so interesting, because that Bellamy Road goes, from what's left of it, but it went from Pensacola to St. Augustine. It was the first federal highway, and kind of a boondoggle because the old Mr. Bellamy was paid to build it a certain width, and he didn't build it to spec, but it was built. And it's interesting because, you know, he used the land bridge of where the Santa Fe River goes underground. And this was the old Native American paths and also the Camino, I think this Camino Real, the Spanish trail between the missions. So all of these pathways went through there because it's a natural bridge. You know, the river's underground, so everything kind of channeled into that area. So there's a ton of history where Santa Fe River goes underground and reappears at River Rise Park. We go right through there on this tour. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So I love that part of it. And it is, like you said, approachable. You know, it's about 60 miles. I think 66 miles, maybe close to that, 65 miles, around 100K. And you have all day to do it. And the thing Carlos has introduced me to is like slowing down and enjoying it. You know, we stop for lunch and getting to know people and getting to be immersed in the community. It starts right away, man. It starts at the beginning and you just start riding with people. I love it. Absolutely love it. My 50-pound bike with the tent and everything. I'll go on. I can go on for hours, but I really appreciate Carlos for what he showed me about what biking means to me now.
Yeah, and there's layers to it that are complex and like I said, that all kind of blend together. One, you've kind of got a nomadic group and a tribe that's your tribe for the next few days and people that you're meeting, which is great. You meet a lot of different people and from all over the state and even beyond, which is kind of cool. Like they've come to do this event and you've all come, which is one layer of the relational side. And then you kind of step back and, you know, from both your perspectives and in your own little ways, I mean, you see things at 10 to 15 miles an hour that you wouldn't see at 60 and 70 miles an hour. And, you know, slowing down and just checking out. So kind of day one, depart, we get there, we land, you know, whatever works for you, set your stuff up and you know, you set up your camp for the night. And it's kind of cool just sitting around talking with people. But Carlos, man, walk us through like the first night, just kind of talking with people and hearing about their experience. I mean, what's the thing that kind of excites you and kind of really speaks to your heart?
What I focus on, especially with every aspect of every single day, is that people feel comfortable enough to like carve out their own experience. So, you know, I know there's some people that like to go to bed early, and then there's some that like to stay up late. And my big focus is to make sure that I create the space for people to be able to do that and feel like free enough to just be whoever they want to be.
And so I thought, man, it was great. And you know, as free flowing as it was, it had enough structure to make people feel comfortable. And so I loved kind of that first kind of, we're there, we've landed, you know, so we make it through night one, we jump into the morning, right? And Carlos lost his voice, lost your voice. And
What happened?
it happened. Yeah. Well, I don't know what happened. Like what
I
happened? You
don't
just like,
know.
First time I've ever lost my voice while leading a group. So
Oh man, our
it's all
cruise
right.
director loses his voice. It was tough. I had to
Yeah.
step in.
Thankfully,
But did
Graham was there to
okay.
help. Yeah. Thanks
I
for
said some
Graham for
things.
the help.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the cool part. I mean, you know, it's free flowing enough and we just made it work. And so we take off, we depart and we're off to High Spring, right? And so I know part of that experience was getting on a old rail trail, which was not paved yet, which I thought was great. Just still open, kind of, you know, some ruts maybe, you know, mostly grass with some dirt. And I know, Graham, you're doing some drone shots there, but man,
Yeah.
make it into High Springs was cool. I enjoyed that. And then, you know, from my perspective, leaving there, we found a jewel. Like sometimes, you know, I think if you're hiking, you call it trail magic. But on our way, you know, from there into Archer, there was a ball field.
Oh,
That man, there was games going on, and we're like, you know, where there's games, there's hot dogs. And man, hot dogs just taste amazing after 20 miles. But you can imagine 40 miles, 50 miles is like that's the most amazing food ever, next to donuts. So I think day two for me was like there were some highlights there that thinking through, I was like, man, this is some good stuff. So what about you guys? Day two, I know we're not.
listen, I am so unhappy with you in the hot dog story because I stopped to take incredible drone footage of you knuckleheads going down some beautiful, some beautiful road. And then you just keep going. I have to like fly the drone and fly it back to me. And then I get it back. I get it back in my fanny pack. I've got a fanny pack of like 20 pounds full of, I've got 2 helicopters and 3 cameras. And you're just gone. And I'm just like, I can see you up the road and I'm trying to go as hard as I can. There's a headwind and I think I'm catching and then you're just gone. And I didn't realize, like, oh, let's pull into the ball field and have some delicious hot dogs. Meanwhile, I'm like chewing on a piece of bark, like just can't wait to get to Archer.
Mm,
So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed your hot dogs, Billy. I got to Archer. I was like, where are these
yeah,
guys? Yeah, they
yeah, it
were,
was good.
yeah,
Yeah. Carlos,
nice.
were you able to stop there, or did you just keep on going?
Oh, and we had to stop. We went over that big ridge line. I know it's hard to notice it, and it's an exaggeration calling it a ridge line, but the road kind of rolled for a
Yeah,
bit, and it was kind of like a tough little crossing. And we got across there, and we had to stop there for water, no
yeah,
matter what. And I didn't personally have a hot dog, but I did have an ice cold Coke, so it
yeah,
was worth it.
yeah. And
But
then we
we did
rolled.
stop. I mean, we had to. We needed it. It was
Yeah.
just
Oh,
kind of like a tough little traverse going south for a bit.
And what was the Mexican food place there? What was the name?
Oh man, I
oh,
can't
you
think
would
of it
ask
right
me.
now.
Well, I
Archer
I
mean,
can't.
Mexican place.
no, yeah. Art, just go. There's only one. So
Oh,
it's
it was
only one.
good. It was good
One.
though.
They
Yeah.
have a stoplight and they got a Mexican place. It's
Yeah.
good.
So okay. So you left there and you're heading to camp. So I had to leave. I had to get back
Oh
to
yeah.
St. Augustine.
Say
So
goodbye.
I had to relive this. I had to live this watching the video, and I missed out on some good stuff. I feel so bad. I feel ashamed, but I still wanted to do as much of the ride as I could. So I had to leave. And so, yeah, so shame on me because I missed out on some good stuff. So walk us through, man, that afternoon, that evening. What did y'all experience? What was that like?
Well, so the very first time that when I first planned the Devil's Den loop and we stayed at Two Hawk Hammock, I had there's a house there on the site that sleeps like 15, and I had rented that house and then gotten some auxiliary camps to compensate for the people that we couldn't get inside. And that night that we stayed there during the Devil's Den loop, we got Ken going, we got him talking. He showed us this wooden boat that he built himself, and then he took us to Devil's Den, and that's what started the tradition of seeing that spring at night. Now every time we go, that's the game. Like we got to get him going, we got to get him excited, and we're gonna get him over there. Ken was like raring to take us. He wanted to go at 7:30. I was dragging my feet like, let's wait till 8. But like they really were dying to go. And I wasn't going to argue because kind of like that's the game. Like when we get there, the game is to get Ken to take us to Devil's Den at night. Normally, if you want to go see Devil's Den, you got to fill out this 3-page waiver. You got to wear goggles and a snorkel and
Hmm.
you know, fins or whatever they call them. Like it's a production, but so for us to be able to go there and kind of like sneak in at night, that wow, it really is like a home run as far as like bike packing goes. It doesn't get any better than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed out. I am such a loser, man.
Uh,
That looked great.
That was like a spiritual experience, Billy.
Mm,
I missed the hot
yeah.
dogs, but man, you
Yeah.
missed. And the cool thing was this guy Aaron, who just started working for Live Wildly and from California, and still living in California and working for the company. And that Live Wildly's they work closely with Florida Wildlife Corridor, their nonprofit, and so he's doing all their media stuff right now. And hopefully he'll end up moving here. But right now he's back and forth a bunch, and he's a bike packer. And he reached out and wanted, was curious about bike packing in Florida, and it worked out. He got on the tour with us. He had the best time, and I think that we got down to the spring. Not everybody jumped in. I don't know why. I'm like, I'm in. Love the experience and jumping in this prehistoric cave of a spring at night. It's pretty dang magical. I tell you what, man, that will change you. If you're gonna do the tour for just that thing, you do it because it's so cool. It's an incredible way to like cap off a really fun event, and it's so well handled. And this goes back to Carlos and his ability to relate to people and be in relation with people and to cultivate relationships with people that really care about Florida and the things that make Florida special. Most people don't know real Florida, and this is another example of Devil's Den. Is there's no place like it there. Oh, it's so cool. It's hard to describe. That's a great way to end. The day two. What a high note! Incredible.
Right. It looks really cool. And so, Carlos, yeah, I think to Graham's point, just the networking and the connections that you've had that kind of open these doors. And then you taking that a step further and being a good steward of that. Like it's one thing to develop a relationship that lets you do these things, but then to continue that year after year just kind of speaks to how you steward those relationships. You just treat people right, and you get these opportunities, which is really cool. And then you share that, you pass it on, which is really cool. And that's a big deal.
Admittedly, there's a downside though.
Hmm.
Roosters,
Yeah, yeah,
3
yeah.
a.m.
Oh,
Those
there we go.
Florida roosters. I don't know. I grew up in Texas, man. Texas roosters didn't do this. I don't know what it is about Florida
Mm.
roosters. This 3 a.m. You know, I don't even understand it. And here's the funny thing is that, so I get back to St. Augustine, and that very next Monday, there are two roosters outside of my office. I'm like,
They're
never
the
been there
same ones,
before. I'm
Billy.
like, dude, they freaking followed me here.
They did.
It's
They're the
like,
same ones. They found you.
I'm like, I want to run you over. It's like, for the sake of everyone on that camp out, or you guys. So yeah, those roosters are something else. And I think one of the things I'm learning, Carlos, and I've only been on a couple of rides, your rides that you've designed, but I'm learning that if Florida had its own dialect and like, language, like Carlos would be synonymous with a lot of different things. It could mean, yeah, that's a Carlos. That could be either a water crossing, you know, that could also mean unplanned adventure, deadfall, climbing through fences. And so I kind of appreciate your few little Easter eggs that you like to throw in on some of these things, which I think you kind of enjoy those too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always something pretty on the other side, but the deadfall thing, I did not know about it. When Graham like told me that there was deadfall, I'm like, man, someone rode this route just a couple weeks ago. They did not even mention it,
Mm,
which speaks to that because obviously they're like, oh, there's deadfall. This is a normal Carlos thing because they didn't say anything to me. Like I didn't
yeah.
even know. A year ago when we did this, we rode straight in there, no deadfall, no nothing. So
Yeah.
it's like it's sometimes it's just what are you gonna do? It's just a surprise.
Well, it was great, man. I know, like for us, a couple of us were together, and so it was like, well, Graham wasn't because he's way behind, No, I'm just kidding, doing drone stuff. But no, there's a couple of us together, and it was cool because we're helping each other, and it's like, people you just met, and like you're just helping them with their gear, and it's just you got a common goal of getting somewhere whenever you get there. But it was cool to kind of navigate through that as well. So I know that was kind of fun for me. And so, all right, so day two, this amazing experience. Then you have to go jump in your tent, and I know for this particular trip there was some weather potential the next day, later on the next morning, late morning, early afternoon, kind of some stuff rolling in. And so I know kind of the point was to get back to the starting point. But let's walk through, man. I mean, because now you've gone through day two, you're awake. You're on day three. You know that, hey, we're about to head home. I mean, share with us a couple of highlights, some things that maybe you saw, some things you really enjoyed from that day three heading back.
The weather conversation started like on Monday. I was getting messages about this rain on Sunday, and I pretty much had made my decision that I was going to advise everyone to just leave as early as they could, and if they rode hard and fast enough, they could beat the storm. And thankfully, everybody just kind of instinctively picked up on that cue, and that's exactly what they did. Me and Uriah, we left only 40 minutes early, and we were the only ones who ended up having to ride in the rain. We rode in the rain for 30 minutes. We got caught, but everybody who left before us stayed dry, which was magical. I mean, you can't want for anything better than that. But that last day is such a good day. It's only 41 miles, but it is 41 really good miles because we approached the town, we approached Mikinoki from a different direction.
Hmm.
So you get to see these really awesome uphills and downhills on really good roads. Oh, it's such a good approach into town. It's really in some ways it's like the crown jewel of the whole trip, those last few miles, because it's just so pretty and it's fun. You're going downhill. Who doesn't like going downhill?
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think, and the other beautiful part is that, it's something that the tribe, the group, the nomads who kind of conquered day one, day two, they're like, well, we finished this, right? We kind of went through some form of adversity. There's always some form of adversity you got to get through. But I mean, when you do that with a group of people, I mean, when you experience something like that, you're 7 times more likely to remember it. And I think for many people, these are lasting memories now.
It never gets old hearing or getting the messages from folks, sharing that uh, how much they enjoyed the experience they had on the trip. Really, that keeps kind of like the fire going, and it's those little messages, those little thank yous, those little random emails, those posts that they do. Like it never gets old. The best the best side effect of why I got into this to begin with. I got into this just to prepare to be able to go ride the Great Divide mountain bike route. And then it turned into so much more. And really the stoke is fed by the people. The people are the one who pushed me to start doing this. The people are the one. The group ride started because I had a crazy idea on a loop I wanted to do, and I invited some friends, and then that's really how it started with the River to Sea. That whole group tour idea, that's how it started. It was just a crazy idea I had, and let's go do this loop. And then everybody was like, well, we'll go with you. And and it's kind of was born from their encouragement. So coincidentally enough, their encouragement is what keeps me doing it. That those first timers who succeed, who conquer their goals, who feel good, and the repeat riders, the people who keep coming back every year. It's really all about that journey. The journey is the prize. Everyone has a chance to win, and they just have to embrace the experience.
That's so. Yeah, you put on a really, really good, event, at least in this one, I think, to really help people, A, build community, but B, to accomplish something, whether that's personal or even within the group. So it's really cool to see that. And so, Graham, what about you, man? What was your big takeaway? What do you like to see? I mean, you were doing a lot of drone stuff, and so you were
It was.
stopping and starting. So for you, like, what keeps you coming back? Stuff like this.
Yeah, I love to get to know people. I mean, I'm a bit of an extrovert, I guess.
Oh,
Um,
you are. You both are.
uh,
This is amazing.
but it is the experience of the community that I've gotten to know through Carlos. It's it's attractive to me because it's helped me enjoy being on the bike and seeing places in Florida and sharing. And I love sharing these things with people. And I really feel like, with my heart for, as a native Floridian, born and raised Florida man, I want to see these things like the wildlife corridor and these natural places be saved before the villages grows all throughout the state. It's disgusting. I mean, I hate to be like a militant about this, the the conservation stuff, but it's got to stop. And I know through doing these bikepacking tours, this shows people parts of Florida. They're like, oh, we gotta we gotta do something about this. I think it's a hard part. It's really part of what matters to me, and being in those places and showing people those places, and showing them the videos of the places we go, I think attracts people to doing more bike packing and how approachable it is. The Dirt Devil Tour is very approachable. Like I pointed out, like one guy's on, road shoes with aero bars. The guy's a go
Mhm.
fast guy, and he's out
Yeah.
there just,
His
and it
first trip.
changed him. And there's guys, there's a bunch, and then there's like these ladies that were over 60 at least. They're just hanging out and just riding along with us too. I mean, it's everybody, very
Mhm.
approachable, and that's what's nice about these dirt roads and these types of events where I'd be comfortable inviting anybody on a tour like this with just a small amount of fitness happen. I think this can impact on a broader scale, what we're trying to conserve. And I think Carlos has a heart for that. I've learned a lot from him about preserving the land. He is quietly, in his own way, doing a lot of these things. So I'm just trying to
Mhm.
support that.
Carlos, with your website and kind of where they can find information. But before we get there, I do have kind of a fun little ending I want to do because, I mean, Florida bike packing, I think you have to make some hard decisions every once in a while. And so if you're presented, I'm going to ask either one, both of you this question. You're presented with the opportunity to stop at either a Circle K or a Dollar General. They're right next to each other. Which one are you stopping at and why? Yeah.
Circle K, no
Circle
brainer.
K.
Yeah, they have the self checkout,
Yeah.
and they got. I really my favorite thing to get is like a Coke Zero, and they have a
Mhm.
fountain drink. Nothing tastes better than a fountain drink. There's no
That's right.
fountain drinks in Dollar General.
Yeah, dude. Circle K, 100%. They're way better on the snacky side of life. You know, you go
Yeah.
into Dollar General, you got to buy boxes of things, and their snack selection is somewhat limited.
Hmm.
I've been disappointed with their little chocolate donuts. I got a bad batch; it was stale and just not
Yeah.
waxy enough.
Yeah.
So, Circle K, bro, for
Yeah,
sure.
I have to echo the Circle K, man, because it's like that, the fun size package of I don't need 24 chocolate donuts. I just
No,
need like the regular serving. I don't need
the regular
I don't
serving
want to, yeah, I don't need that
sleeve.
many of them. Well, appreciate Carlos, man. Thank you so much for joining, and Graham, thanks, thanks for both of you guys for all that you do for the community in Florida. Carlos, tell us where, just as we get ready to close out, man, where can we go? Where can people go to find out more about the adventures? This is just one of many things that you do,
Right.
but where can people go to find out more about this sort of stuff?
Singletracksamurai.com. There's a calendar right on the front page. It's a pretty good website. There's all kinds of stuff up there. You can also follow at Single Track Samurai on Instagram or Single Track Samurai on Facebook. It's kind of just feeds itself. Um, we're always up to something. There's something going on, no matter what. We're wrapping up the tour season. We've got a couple more tours this season, and then in the summer we'll do a couple of great gravel day rides because we're not bike packing in the summer. But
Yeah,
other than that, then before you know it, it'll be fall again, and Tally Tango will be coming up. So that's when the season really hits. Fall to spring is our season. So fall, winter, spring is prime time. Right now, it is prime time. We're bike packing this weekend right out of Critter Creek Sanctuary. And then we got
nice.
another trip in May. So there's still a couple more things going on. SingleTrackSamurai.com.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for sharing that. And then, Graham, thank you, man, for all the video work that you do. I know that it takes a lot to kind of crunch through that. I know video production world, people just say, oh, you're just throwing videos together. No, it takes a lot of effort. And I know not only are you promoting what Carlos does, but I mean, you're promoting just a way of life culture. And I think it's been pretty amazing to see that. And of course, you can see Graham's work on his YouTube channel. But Graham, where do people go to find that? Where all the compilations, all the things that you've shot, where can they go?
Yeah, it's just on the YouTube channel's Florida Bike Adventures. It's for all the feral bike pack adventures that we're doing.
I like
It's
that
transitioned
feral.
over the years. If you go back and see where it started and where it's at now, you can see where I started doing multi-day rides with staying in hotels and cabins to staying in actual tents. I'm actually staying in tents now.
I'm so
And put
proud
it
of you,
up all
man.
by myself. I didn't screw it up once.
And I know I didn't mention this, man. I am proud of you because Carlos even said, like, Graham, they have when we were in the Dirt Devil, there was a little cabin, and you made the right choice, and I'm proud of you. That was a test, I think.
I
Carlos,
turned
you were
it down.
testing him. So I think that was good. Well, guys,
Turned down the cabin.
I appreciate having y'all's time, and I know this is going to add value because, hey, there's a lot of people out there that watch these videos and they hear about these things and they don't think that they can do it. But man, I'm going to tell you that anyone can do it, and I think it's because of guys like you. And Carlos, thank you for all that you do, and Graham, thank you for all that you do to make these things happen. You add value to the community, and I would encourage you, if you're listening, watching, whatever, and you've ever thought about doing this and you haven't done it yet, just do it. Go sign up for something, get whatever bike you can, and just make it
Yeah,
happen.
definitely.
Just make
Walk
it
through
happen.
fear. Let's go.